Hello, my name is Michael Moss, and I'm here to talk to you about a rash of gun violence we've been having in Rochester, New York lately. As you know, we have had a lot more violent behaviors in Rochester city limits, and it's time to make a stand. What I'm proposing is made up into 4 different categories: education, officers' views of residents, strengthening those relationships with those residents, and offering mutual gun exchanges. Gun violence has been on the rise for the last 10 years, and every year we've been making national news with our capitas. 22% of young men in Rochester, New York have carried a gun, even for a short period of time. That is a staggering number considering our population. As of inside city limits this year, we have had 22 homicides, over 100 shootings, and have only had 5 arrests. When it comes to education, I'd like to have a community education about guns and their abilities. I'd like to be available to answer the questions for any of these residents and explain the dangers of carrying a gun and shooting one. I feel like the reason why 22% of young men have carried a gun, even for a short time, those short-timed residents that carried a gun, the only reason they stopped was because they saw what a gun could do. If we get to them before they start carrying the gun, they may have an idea not to carry it at all. Officers' views on residents. Welcome to the jungle. I spoke to an officer at a recent shooting scene, and they told me that they feel that the city of Rochester is a jungle, and the residents that are inside of it are just animals killing each other. That is a prejudicial act that needs to change. They also told me at that scene that before their shift every night, they listen to the song Welcome to the Jungle. That is a problem in my eyes. If you see something as to be something, you're going to think of it that way, whether or not these are actual human beings. I need these officers to relate to residents and to the experiences that they've been through, because each life is considerably different. That brings me to my next point of strengthening relationships with these residents. I'd like the officers to speak with the residents personally, understand what they're coming from, make themselves known as being more of a friend than an officer. The officers need to be visible, they need to be available, and they just need to listen. If they listen and make their relationship build, then those 5 arrests will turn into a lot more. People know stuff. They're not talking to the police because they don't trust them. For example, in the Times Square section of New York City in the early 90s, there was a big problem with prostitution, shootings, guns, drugs, you name it, they probably had it. I went there on a trip a few weeks ago, and I noticed that on every street corner there was at least 3 cops, and they're wandering around patrolling 24 hours a day. They're making sure you're safe. They will approach you, they will talk to you, they will interact with you. But they did not assume that I was doing something wrong when they came up to me. They just asked me and saw what I was doing. They talked to me. They understood where I came from, and they were doing that. That's something that we need to implement in our Rochester streets. And you know what? Crime rates in New York City are down. The final offering that I have proposed is for gun exchanges. I'd like to offer local residents that they can bring their illegal weapons to a drop-off point with no questions asked, no fear of getting arrested because they are dropping those guns off. Sometimes I'd even like to offer possible incentives to push the guns out of these houses so that they are not even available for these residents to use in shootings amongst the city residents. And the schedule, I'd like to do this as soon as possible and to save lives. I think that if these are implemented, they will save lives. Staffing, I'm going to rely on a lot of volunteers from the city neighborhoods that want these things to change. And police officers need to be on board with this because they're the ones that are going to be interacting with these residents. For the budget-wise, we're going to have the normal salaries for the police officers. Volunteers are volunteers. And then I would like to bring in people who are on the training staff for the Times Square section of New York City and bring them in and show our officers what they can do. And obviously we pay them a seminar rate for them to be able to do that. I thoroughly believe that with those 4 implements that the gun violence in Rochester will be down. We need to get this started, and I urge you to accept my plan. I think that we can do this, and we can do this soon, and I'd like to thank you for listening to me today. Thank you.